Mandukya Karika. Om Bhadram Karne Bhishnuyam Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangaye Sustuvagang Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashrava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti Nastakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspati'r Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. So we had a quick go at the last verses of second chapter of Mandukya Karika, where it says that person who is established in Advaita, he must make sure never to fall down from that state. Now, before we begin the third chapter, which is known as Advaita Prakaran, I'd like to draw your attention to certain things. Unlike other religious practices by any religion, or say even in Hinduism, Advaita is difficult, extremely subtle. It requires extreme sharpness of mind. Advaita sadhana, path of Advaita, comes in three stages. One is, I'm talking from my personal experiences. First is when you just keep on listening and you keep on just knowing what it is, what Advaita is. You try to understand. So, dear viewers, those of you who are listening to these talks, I assume that you're trying to understand we are talking. And as far as I am concerned, I'm making every effort to make ideas clear. However, I wish to caution you that unless you become contemplative, you cannot understand Advaita. We have grown up knowing the fundamental reality of this world, that I exist and you exist. Now this you exist, this I just have to remove this you and bring in God. I am there, God is there. So easy to understand. One of our Swamijis who was in America for very long time, was head of Berkeley Center, and he came back, and as the luck could have, he was my head when I was at Advaita Ashram. So I won't say authority, but I'm kind of permitted to discuss Advaita because I have lived that life. Now this Swamiji, Swami Swanandaji Maharaj, and many devotees know him, Swami Swananda, he used to say that, look, it is extremely difficult for the Ramakrishna mission to become popular in America. And for that matter, in any country. The argument was so simple. He said, if you go and tell people that Sri Ramakrishna is superior to Jesus or any other god that they worship, it is very easy for them. They just have to remove, say Jesus from their mind and bring in Sri Ramakrishna, as some sects in India are doing it, projecting Sri Krishna. Now it becomes very simple. You have Jesus or you have some other god. Say there is Shiva. You just remove Shiva and place Sri Ramakrishna. It's so easy. The moment you say that they're all true, it becomes extremely complicated for them. And when you go for Advaita, something that we are discussing, they just can't grasp it. So he said, it's very difficult, very difficult. And he said that in case you find new members joining the Ramakrishna mission, people who are devoted in their family traditions or committed to their family traditions, they come and become devotees of the Ramakrishna mission. Know that that person has some worth. Because Advaita is so difficult to comprehend. And all gods are same, so difficult to comprehend. Now, whatever path you take, whatever religion you follow, the fundamental remains the same. I am there, this world is here. I am here, this pen is here. Everyone is conscious of this. Shankaracharya begins his Brahma Sutra, the famous commentary, with this Yusmad Asmad Pratyaya. The, the idea that I exist and the idea that you exist. The I consciousness and you consciousness, it is present in everyone. Why do you need philosophy for this? You might have heard, those of you who are nowadays courtesy YouTube, listening to many talks, you might have heard statements like, don't love anything from this world, love God. Basically, what they are trying to say, that there is love inside you. Instead of placing it on object A, put it on object B. It's so simple. Advaita is not like that. Advaita is, as they say, it's a sea change. It's, as they say, complete paradigm shift. There are lots of terms in modern day physics to express these things. So first is you have to understand what is Advaita. For that you have to listen very carefully, study, apply your mind and understand. Once you can understand what is Advaita, second is you start practicing it in your daily life. Which means do not pay much attention to the affairs of the world, number one. Number two, treat everyone as your own. The problem is that when we have to get what we want, we treat the world as our own. But when the other one needs me, then we just try to shrug our shoulders away. See, this is the problem. This is not how Advaita works. Advaita is about self-effacement. We do the other way around. We say that you effacement. No, that's not how it works. As you become more and more contemplative, as you become more and more thoughtful, slowly the understanding becomes clear. As your understanding becomes clear, you start practicing it. How much? As much as you can. And if you can truly establish yourself in the practice of Advaita, you are now great. You are now great. After that comes realization, where you actually see it. Now, that does not depend on your efforts. Your effort can take you up to two steps. First, knowing, understanding. Second, practicing. The last one, realizing that is beyond you. And this is the first part. Second part is that what we are discussing is extremely subtle. And by subtle, I mean subtle. Difficult to comprehend. So you may have to listen a second time, a third time, many times. And secondly, now we are entering the philosophy of Advaita. It's highly technical. It can also be disturbing at times. So just if you listen to the talks very carefully, you will see that the confusion that may arise in your mind And the disturbances that may arise will completely washed off clean. Now, in the previous talk, we were discussing what is Advaita. Once again, I am trying to make it clear because now we are entering the philosophy part, so we would need this. Many of our viewers, they keep asking me questions on the fundamentals. So I just putting that entire thing in a few sentences. Advaita has a lot of technical terms, and one of the very important technical terms is real, with a capital R, real. The opposite of real is unreal. Advaita is about real, Advaita is about reality. And Advaita says, discard unreality. Reality, unreality. Now, unreality comes in two different forms. One is non existence. Alik, the word in Indian languages for that is alik, that which does not exist. Second is temporary or transitory, that which is there but which was not there yesterday will not be there tomorrow. I mean, it was not there in the past. That is, it had a beginning sometime in the past, and we know intuitively that it will end sometime in past. So there are two kinds of unreal. One is that which does not exist, like baby of a barren woman. Secondly, transitory. Now, what Advaita preaches is that try to understand that everything that surrounds you, including your own identity, your own identity, me, the Samarpanananda. Sometimes certain things are non existent, illusory, and sometimes they are just a passing phase. Remember these two expressions. One, anything that is an illusion, non existent, is not Advaita. Anything which is temporary. How do you know temporary? Temporary means thing that was born yesterday will not be there tomorrow. That is temporary. Advaita says focus on the real. What is real? Real is that is throughout uniform in time, past, present, future. If you remember just one simple definition, that which stays constant in past, present, and future is real. What our Mandukya Karika has been doing is, it is making every effort to make us understand that Atman alone is real, everything else is unreal. We also mentioned in the previous class that analogies are used to make an idea clear. When the idea itself is not clear, then analogies do not work. I have seen with my brother monk sometimes when we discuss, we offer some ideas and we give examples. Immediately they pounce upon the examples. Say for example, once I read somewhere long ago, the state of Atman is often compared to the infinite ocean. Now, some gentleman from some other religion had criticized that. See, look, your Atman is like ocean, and ocean is full of sharks and whales. This is what Atman is. So I was very young in those days, and I didn't understand the nitty gritties of philosophy. Even at that time, I was shocked at the kind of argument. It's a comparison. It's a comparison with ocean. That is why Lord Vishnu is often portrayed as sleeping on Kshir Sagar, ocean of milk, so that the problem of shark and whales is done away with. Every analogy that we are using it assuming that you, my dear listeners, my learned listeners, have understood a bit of Advaita. Otherwise, these analogies will not work. If you become a bit contemplative, if you start thinking, you will understand. So, the best analogy that I can think of to make you understand the relationship between, say, Atman and this world, how one appears as many, and how many are actually one, is that imagine that there's a huge ocean, say, as in North Pole, South Pole. You have to imagine. And ice has been formed. And I'll just add something to your imagination. Think that now there are huge castles of these ice. And you have every kind of construction there. Think of a museum made up of ice. There are different kinds of ice idols and all. Now there is a small droplet of water. And just imagine, add wings to your imagination. And it is moving through that huge snow museum or ice museum and wondering. In that museum, there is nothing. There is nothing other than anything other than ice. It's all ice. And it looks amazed. Such a huge castle, such a huge castle-like building, such a huge museum. I'm told that there is Paris Museum, which is huge. And looking at all those huge idols and all. And he also feels lost. You can go on imagining whatever you want to imagine. Then comes another droplet of water and says, you know that whatever it is here is you. What will be his reaction? That of a shock. Actually, they are one and the same. How? The entire thing is H2O, water. H2O. As H2O, they are all same. But as huge ocean and the drop, they are different. Those of you who have studied physics in high schools might be knowing of a particular condition known as triple point. At a particular temperature, particular pressure, ice, steam, and water, all three can coexist. Normally, we see only ice and water or water and steam. But at triple point, you can have all three. This universe is something like a triple point where consciousness appears as mind, as matter, and also as consciousness. Which one is correct? A droplet asks in that triple point, and the point can be only in laboratory conditions because temperature and pressure have to be regulated simultaneously. So that water simultaneously and changing from water to ice, from ice to steam. When you're taking something, some drink, during summer you want some cold water, you ask for ice cubes. Ice cubes are extremely important because you want it to cool your drink. Hot water, cold water, and ice, they're all different for you. But for a scientist who is working with water, who needs water. Basically, he needs H2O. For him, it makes no difference whether it is steam or it is water or it is ice. The three states that we are discussing of water, they're physical changes. In chemistry, they are known as physical changes. There is no chemical change involved when there is a change of state. Now, this physical change is known as unreal in Advaita. Physical change is unreal. Chemical change is real. But in Atman, there will never be chemical change. In water, there can be chemical change. But in consciousness, there can never be. That is what Advaita continuously says, that there can never be an actual transformation in consciousness. The problem is we think that there is an actual transformation. Think of water, H2O. H2O can undergo a chemical transformation and it can become something else, say sodium hydroxide, NOH. Or sulfuric acid, it can become H2SO4. Can there be any such change with consciousness? No. Now, what Advaita Vedanta says, that everything that you see is essentially a physical change. And these physical changes have no value whatsoever for an Advaitin. And when you actually realize Atman, you actually see these things. You see that triple point where there is consciousness, there is mind, and there is body, there is matter. We elaborated in the previous talk how Sri Ramakrishna is seeing all the three at the same time. He saw that there was Latu, later Swami Advaitananda, sitting on the steps of the Kali temple with his face on his hand. And Sri Ramakrishna says, I saw that same Satchidananda. People appear to him like pillows. Everybody being a pillowcase, within only cotton. So, if you can remember this thing, physical change, chemical change, and chemical reality. Chemical reality is H2O. If there is a chemical change, it becomes something entirely different. It will not be H2O anymore. Now, whatever form and shape it might take, if it's a physical change, it will be only H2O. Something similar happens in case of consciousness. Once again, analogies do not point at the reality. It is to understand reality that we use analogies. What Advaita Vedanta is continuously telling is that focus on the spiritual reality. The way a scientist will focus on the chemical reality. A scientist working in chemical lab, he doesn't go by the physical reality. He goes by the chemical reality. A spiritual person goes by spiritual reality. Whenever you study a book on Advaita Vedanta, they try to negate everything physical about it. Just remember one very important thing, that one becoming many are of different kinds in this world. For example, there is a tree. Think of the tree from the land where you stay, say a mango tree. And those of you who are from America, maybe an apple or an orange tree. You find that it's the same tree that produces different fruits. Now, those different fruits may or may not be the same. May or may not be. The world coming out of Brahman is not like that. Now think of human being. There's a lady, there's a mom. She has, say, three kids, four kids. All the four are coming from the same source. Think of those kids being twins or triplets or just different kids. Each one of them has a completely individual personality. Complete individual personality. We normally think, under normal conditions, we think that me and this world, we are like this. Mother and four kids. No, it's not like that. One becoming three, mother having three kids. No, it's not like that. Because those three have their own personality. Now, the world that appears before us is more like water becoming ice, water becoming steam. That there is a change, but there is no chemical change as such. So reality is not changing. Now, this is the best example that I can think of to make the ideas on Advaita clear. From day one, we have been discussing on Advaita, Advaita, Advaita. So with that, I hope some idea about Advaita is clear to you. Just remember that anything within the realm of mind, anything that can be grasped by the mind is unreal. Does not matter whether it is illusion, it is simply verbal reality, or it is some kind of reality that is grasped by the senses. Ultimately, they all belong to mind. Anything belonging to mind is unreal. Anything. So you say, what about Advaita? No, Advaita doesn't belong to the mind. Advaita belongs way beyond mind. Mind is like a wave on consciousness. Mind is like a wave on Brahman. If you can remember this much, that mind and consciousness, these are two different things. Mind is like a wave, and matter is like a wave in the ocean of the mind. So basically, you have three: you have consciousness, you have mind, you have matter. The difference lies in grossness. H2O, steam, water, ice. Essentially, they are one and the same. However, in case of Advaita, it's not about saying, either you say that they are all pure consciousness, or you say they do not exist. When you say they do not exist, you mean to say that as name and form, they do not exist. In reality, it has to have an existence. Atman alone has become all this. Ice cubes, they do not have any existence. They are just name and form. It is all H2O. Any scientist who needs water will be as comfortable with ice cubes as with a beaker of water. Now, the chapter 1 that we discussed, Mandukya Karika took help from the Upanishads, Mandukya Upanishad. And beautifully we saw how Advaita is explained in Mandukya Upanishad. Now, nobody can question the Upanishads. Anyone who is following Hindu tradition cannot question the Upanishads. So you can say that that was the premise. It set the ball rolling. And from there came the second chapter that we had been discussing till now, known as Vaitatya, illusion. What Karika did with that chapter was it used different kinds of analogies, different kinds of arguments which were not really of very high quality, because it was about illusion. And you cannot prove illusion through arguments. Maximum you can do is you can use analogies. That is what Mandukya did. So now, to prove Advaita, first you say that our scriptures say that. Like, for example, any of these religions, whatever that religion will say, my religion is true. Why? Because my holy book, my sacred book came from God. God is true. Why? Because my book says. Book is book is true. Why? Because God says so. Wonderful argument. If you try applying your mind, you can only laugh. Just slightly deviating from the main topic. You might be knowing of Ram Janmabhoomi case, and I was quite interested, not because of the sentiments, but because how the arguments were unfolding in the High Court when the case was in the High Court, and it was massive. Now, finally, when the judge was delivering the argument, the judges pointed out a very interesting fact. The quotes against the Ram Janmabhoomi, that the temple existed, came from three judges, from three eminent historians. Mind it, three eminent historians. And how they were three eminent historians? The first said the second one is an eminent historian. Second one said the third one is an eminent historian. And the third one said the first one is an eminent historian. What an argument. I just laughed and laughed. Three eminent historians. First quotes the second, second quotes the third, telling they are eminent, and third quotes the first. This is what happens in case of religion. My God is the greatest. Why? My scripture says that. And why is your scripture correct? Because God has said so. What kind of argument? You run in such a wonderful circle. Are you doing something like that here in Mandukya? No. To counter that begins the third section known as Advaita Prakaran. In Advaita, in this section, Advaita will be established purely philosophically, not logically, philosophically. So what it will do is it will go on taking up philosophy after philosophy and will keep on showing their fallacies. Just to caution you, this is a highly technical section, and some of you may find it's a bit boring. Don't get disheartened, because you will come to know practically every system of Indian philosophy, because they didn't even know about other systems of thought. And when a philosophy runs on belief, how can you even discuss them? So just remember, first chapter was based on scriptures, as every religion says that my religion is correct. Why? My scripture says. Why your scripture is correct? Because God says so. Why is God correct? Because my scripture says so. So here cuts that cycle and comes to philosophy. So as we proceed, different philosophies will be coming. I'll just tell you in brief what are the salient points of that philosophy, and then how Karika counters that. So with that we begin Advaita Prakaran, the third. In case you have any question based on what we discussed, you can ask, because I kept the chat open for. But please ask only questions what we have discussed. Don't go beyond it. If you don't have any question, I'll proceed. So there is one gentleman who says, I am mindless. God knows what he means by that. If you mean to say that you are mindless because you have realized Atman, well, you are great. I must bow down before you, but being a monk, I'm not interested right now. And if you say that you are insane, well, then I have no cure for you. Now, Shankar Chaudhary asks, mind and matter different or same? I'll advise you to listen to our Raj Yoga talks, particularly if you listen to our Raj Yoga talks. Uh, there we have discussed in detail Raj Yoga, because it's a whole subject by itself. In short, mind is matter, because mind itself is matter. Anything, see, normally when we think of the world, this world belongs to Prakriti or Shakti. Prakriti itself is composed of three qualities, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. These qualities, they are matter. So everything that is within it is matter. When in Christian world, and the science based on the Christian world, entire Western science is based on Christian world. When they are talking about mind and matter, actually they don't know what they are talking about. They confuse between mind and spirit and consciousness. Well, they didn't have thinkers as India had. In India, they made ideas absolutely clear. So there is nothing called Advait perspective, Shankar. It's a common understanding. It's not Advait. Advait doesn't see things different, any way different as say Dvait or any other system of philosophy. Yes, Western philosophy is completely confused between mind and matter. Mind, matter, and conscious. Because see, they did not apply their mind. And keep in mind one very important thing, that these things cannot be understood only through mind. To understand something, you need to go higher. For example, when you were, say, in class 4, it was difficult for you to solve many questions, say in mathematics. When you came to class 10, you automatically understood the problems of class 4 because your mind evolved. Then you did not have to go back to study class 4 things and solve them. Similarly, if you want to solve the problem of mind and matter, you need to go one step higher. Whenever you want solution for some particular problem, you need to go one step higher. If you have any problem in this world, any problem related to your body. Now, for example, lots of people come to us asking about problem of brahmacharya. If you have a body, you will always have this problem of brahmacharya. If you really want to get out of the sex idea, you need to get out of the body idea. Unless you get out of the body idea, how can you get out of sex idea? Unless you can get out of your body idea, how can you get out of hunger idea? Body and hunger, they're related. Body and sex, they're related. Body and wants, they're related. This is the problem with modern day teachers. They don't tell the truth. When you listen to these popular speakers, when they're talking about how to control your sex drive, no one can control. Till you think you are the body, you can never control your ideas. Sex ideas, hunger ideas, or want ideas, you can never. And that is why India talked about dharma, artha, kama. It said the desire to gain wealth is a valid option. Desire to enjoy is a valid option, nothing wrong with it. Because your mind has identified itself with the body. Now, if you want to get rid of the duality of mind and matter, you need to go beyond it. That is pure consciousness. That is something by their very nature Western religions cannot go. Why? If you ask me why they cannot? Because in Western religions, and Western science is based on Western religions, Middle East religions. God created the body and breathed spirit in it. Worse, it took rib out of Adam's body and created female. So females are permanently inferior to male. Whatever they may say, there is no. It's your scriptural fact. There's no question of quarreling, no question of fighting over it. Now you have spirit, you have mind, you have these are three different things. So that creates a total confusion. So even persons like Roger Penrose, when he's writing about consciousness, is that they are basically talking about the will of mind, volition aspect of mind. Mind wills, mind feels, mind has sensations. So they call that consciousness. Now, for us, all those things belong to mind because, as we shall see, if probably not in today's class, definitely in tomorrow's, in the next class, and be present there. How Advaita looks at sensations. And you will be shocked at what these Western people are doing. But they will never understand. Try talking to them. Now, Shankar, you have been asking too many questions without understanding, okay? You need to study first, okay? Don't be jumpy. Huh? I answered your one question. Now you are going one after another, and that clearly shows that you have been listening to pop Vedanta, popular Vedanta. Now that's something. So, well, any other question related to what we discussed? If not, we proceed. Acharya Shankar begins with his very short introduction. He says that as a premise, Upanishads were taken, Atman alone exists. And then through analogies and examples, it was shown how everything is illusion. Then comes the problem of identity. The problem of identity, which takes you up to the level of unity and disunity, multiplicity and oneness, it extends up to the worshipper and the worshipped. Well, that's how the second chapter had ended. Upasana Shrito Dharmo Jate Brahmani Vartate Prag Utpatte Ajam Sarvam Tenaso Kripna Smrita. For those who have tendencies of a devotee, may find this verse extremely disturbing. Says a person, that is a jiva, takes to devotional worship. You worship Jesus. I worship Vishnu. I worship Shiva. I worship Sri Ramakrishna. Why? Because my mind is totally fixed firmly in the manifest Brahman. The term is Karya Brahma. There is Karan and Karya, the cause and effect. This world is the manifest Brahman. So he thinks that before creation, it was of the same nature as the birthless, Aja. Therefore, it is said to possess an inferior intellect. What verse number 1 says that when you worship God with the idea that I am worshipping God, I will please Him, I'll make Him happy, then I'll become one with Atman. Why? Because before this creation, I was pure consciousness. During creation, somehow I got this body mind complex. So there is a third entity. Consciousness is there, I am there, God is there. Let me worship Him, and by His grace, I'll once again become that same Atman. Says this is low intellect. This is extremely disturbing. And, dear listeners, this has created a lot of confusion amongst the followers of Advaita. Rarely will you come across who thinks he knows Advaita and understands this idea correctly. Acharya Shankar deplores this idea of the worship and the worshipped. Yet, if you read Gita, 12th chapter, commentary by Acharya Shankar, he's all devotion. He's talking only about devotion. So, where lies the fallacy in understanding? I'm making it clear what this verse number 1 says. Anyone who worships God with the idea that God will grant me mukti, God will grant me liberation, devotion will lead me to liberation. Why? Because before this world was created, I was one with Brahman. During creation, somehow I became identified with this world. If I pray, I'll become one with that. Says this is lower kind of understanding. So let me explain it. Study only, whatever your name is. And I hate this kind of naming where you don't even take your name. I'll request you, I've kept the chat open. My eyes go to that side. Please do not distract me with questions that do not belong to the class. This is very bad practice, extremely bad manners. Extremely bad manners. When we are discussing these two, the subject that you are bringing up, bring up that question. It's extremely bad manners. It shows lack of culture, lack of educational culture. Now, to understand what we have been discussing is there are certain points involved here. And once again, you need to be extremely focused on listening what we are discussing. Otherwise, you will miss the point. Not like studying only. I wonder what he's listening. God knows. What kind of mind you have, how unfocused you are. And you wish to understand Vedanta. You wish to understand spirituality. God. Let us take the famous example of Adam's fall from Christianity. Those of you who have listened to our talks, particularly Inspired Talk series, where we have mentioned this many times. Adam and Eve ate an apple and they had a fall from Eden. Those of you who have read my book, The World of Religions, you will see that there we have described in detail that how fall from Eden, fall from the grace is the worst sin. And the only goal in life is to go back to that state of purity. According to Advaita, or rather, let's say, when I am explaining, simple question is that fall of Adam and Eve, is it real or is it unreal? Is it fall or is the fall real or unreal? According to Jewish tradition and consequently with Christian tradition, Islamic tradition, it is real, very much real. Fall was real, so rise has to be real. According to Advaita Vedanta, this fall is transitory. It belongs to Maya. This is not real. Because if it is real, the bondage will become real. If bondage will become real, supposing, think, Adam ate an apple. This is a real event, an actual event, because of which he fell down from the heaven. And then he does something good and goes back to heaven. So the problem of eating the apple a second time will very much remain. So what will happen? Like a pendulum clock, he will keep on falling from the heaven and going back to the heaven. You call it mukti, you call it liberation. Can it be liberation? It's a very simple thing. Think of any other religion. Let's not take their name. Let's not create problems. You worship your Easter, whosoever that is. It can be Krishna, it can be Vishnu, it can be, or whatever from other religions. You worship your God and go to the heaven. And why did you fall down? Because according to the Middle East religions, you fell down because you disobeyed God. Because you disobeyed God, your fall is real. Because your fall is real, your bondage is real. Because your bondage is real, your liberation is real. And because your liberation is real, and the fall was real, the possibility of your fall a second time is very much there. So, like this motion going forward, coming backward, this will continue. And this kind of mukti and this kind of bondage will be akin to getting born and dying. It's a very simple logic. It's not a rocket science, it's a very simple logic. So, what kind of mukti are you talking about? Advaita puts its foot down and says, no, this is unreal. The fall is unreal. Why unreal? This is the one who is with God can never fall down. And the fall is transitory in nature. This is what is being said in the first verse. So, what about worshipping? Let us forget this story of April. Let us go back to the worship. How do you place it? So, if you believe in Karya Brahma, which is manifest Brahman, remember one thing: whatever you worship, you become one with that. It was shown earlier, yang bhavam darshedyasya tang bhavam satupashyati. The Guru shows you something and you become one with it. God is not the great gatekeeper whom you pray, whom you show your ticket. Here is the ticket. Okay, enter the cinema hall. This is juvenile. The very idea that somebody will be interceding on your behalf, standing there, okay, he has taken my name, now you allow him entry in the heaven. We have one Eden Garden here in Kolkata. And so, you know that Eden Gardens and Eden Garden of the heaven. Some VIP is standing on the gate and says, well, he's known to me, allow him in. Something like that. It is ridiculous. It doesn't stand to reason. Because if you enter there, you will fall again. For the same reason that you fell the last time. More importantly, you become what you worship. You become one with your ideal. If you worship something which belongs to Karya Brahma, which belongs to this manifest universe, you will become one with it. You cannot go beyond it. So if you are worshipping Krishna, who is God of the manifest universe, you will have to remain stuck in the manifest universe. Now, Sri Ramakrishna said a very simple way out, and that was, he had a vision at Kashi, that anyone who died at Kashi, Lord Shiva appeared before him, and Mother Parvati removed her knots, the knots of the person who had died. And then Lord Shiva would say that, look, here is my Advaita Roop, which means that you have to see the form of Advaita. If you are a worshipper of Shiva, the Lord of the universe, you will stay stuck in the universe. You have to stay stuck in the universe. What happens when this universe dissolves during ultimate dissolution? No question comes. How can we say? Because mind will not be there. So we don't know. You may come again. You may. Whatever it may be, liberation, it cannot be. It cannot be liberation. To be liberated, you have to know even while living, because in life only your mind is active, the mind as we understand. You have to know that non duality is the reality. If God, whom you worship, shows that reality, well and good, well, in that case, your God is of a different kind. So, here, this idea that if you believe personal God to be the real, to be as real, then you cannot have any liberation. This is what Mandukya Karika says. But from the standpoint of Advaita, this personal God is also unreal. Either unreal or it is one with Brahman. So those of you who have listened to Gita, we have our Gita talks, and I request you people to listen to our Gita talks, because it is based strictly on what Acharya Shankar has said. The problem is now so many people have given talks on such subjects that you may get confused. But then you should listen to our Gita talks, where Acharya Shankar will repeatedly keep telling that I am one with Brahman. And Krishna, who is teaching, is one with the Brahman. I am one with Vasudeva, Krishna, who is one with Brahman. This reality has to set in. You know that Krishna is God, nothing wrong with it. Because when you are in this relative world, you will always be inferior to God. But in essence, coming back to H2O, H2O, the ice, H2O, the steam, H2O, the water. In essence, you are one with Vasudeva Krishna. And in essence, Vasudeva Krishna is same as Brahman. Without that, there cannot be mukti. So we'll continue from this point. Our time is up in the next talk. And slowly we will be entering deeper philosophies. Thank you so much.